Newspaper boy. A boy races through a small town, delivering newspapers. A newspaper boy. As the clock strikes 5, Shankaran Nair exits the press and steps into the quiet evening, where he meets Kiddu, a woodcutter, who is his neighbor. Shankaran stepped into his home, weary but hopeful. His son, Balan, rushed forward, eyes lit with anticipation. Shankaran had only brought a packet of groundnuts. Balan's face fell, his disappointment palpable. "I want biscuits and chocolates," he whined. "Tomorrow, my son, tomorrow," Shankaran promised, hoping to soothe his child's disappointment. Next door, Kiddu's daughter R. Pankajam handed him a letter from his son Raghavan. The letter announced that Raghavan would be coming home on leave for Onam. Shankaran, coughing, prepared for work the next morning. His son Apu advised him to stay home due to his illness, but Shankaran insisted on going. He opened his umbrella, only to find it in a sorry state. Handing it to his daughter Leela, he ventured out umbrella-less. Shankaran was diligently working when his boss approached him, highlighting the urgent tasks that required immediate completion. Kalyani, a hard-working housemaid, arrived late, much to her employer's displeasure. Despite her apologies and explanations of unavoidable delays, the employer remained unsatisfied. Her son, Gopi, was consistently late for school due to Kalyani's tardiness. Gopi entered the room, a sheepish grin plastered on his face. He began to weave a tale of urgent needs, hoping to extract some money from his father. It is crossed 5 o'clock. Shankaran is working hard. He is using the old manually operated press machine. As the clock neared 6, exhaustion overwhelmed Shankaran. His grip loosened, and he collapsed to the floor. Kalyani rushed to Kiddu's house, her face etched with worry. She informed them that Shankaran hadn't returned home yet. As they were discussing, a vehicle pulled up. Shankaran, his hand bandaged, emerged. Everyone rushed to assist him as he entered the house. The next morning, Shankaran lay asleep, his body still weary. Kalyani, despite her own tiredness, prepared herself for work. Pankajam, ever considerate, brought a steaming cup of coffee to Shankaran. Gopi, ever demanding, was constantly asking for new shirts. Kalyani, watching him dress in a perfectly fine outfit, couldn't help but sigh. Apu was burdened with the daunting task of paying the school fees, but their meager finances had dwindled to nothing. A wave of worry washed over them all. Kalyani assured them that she would find a way to secure the fees. Just then, Balan, oblivious to their troubles, innocently requested a new book, his eyes filled with childlike wonder. At school, Gopi's wealth was evident. He flaunted his affluence, treating his classmates to ice sticks. A plan was hatched to skip classes and watch a movie. Apu, meanwhile, quenched his hunger, drinking tap water. Gopi offered him an ice stick, but Apu politely declined. Soon, the group, led by Gopi, vanished, embarking on their cinematic adventure. Onam was fast approaching, and Kiddu and Pankajam were busy discussing their festive plans, as they are expecting Raghavan to join them. At Gopi's home, preparations were in full swing. The house was filled with the aroma of freshly bought vegetables, destined for a grand Onam feast. A festive spirit was palpable as they shopped for new clothes, including a stylish shirt for Gopi. Apu, his gaze fixed on his tattered shirt, handed it over to Leela, hoping she could mend it. Despite his injured hand, Shankaran prepared himself to go to work. The dire financial situation forced him to ignore the pain and the pleas of his family. Kalyani, filled with worry, tried to dissuade him, but he was adamant. Even Apu, with a heavy heart, tried to stop his father, but Shankaran's determination remained unwavering. The hunger pangs of his children outweighed his own suffering, compelling him to leave. As if their troubles weren't enough, the house owner's clerk arrived, demanding 5 months' worth of overdue rent. He gave Shankaran a stern ultimatum of 4 days to settle the debt before leaving. Reaching the press, Shankaran's heart sank. He knew, deep down, that he was about to be fired. As expected, his employer handed him a meager 2 weeks' salary as severance pay. However, Shankaran refused, insisting on being paid only for the work he had actually done. Shankaran, a jobless man, wandered aimlessly, his mind clouded with despair. His footsteps led him towards the railway tracks, a dark, tempting path. As he stood there, contemplating the abyss, a soft melody pierced through the silence. A woman's voice, singing a lullaby, filled the air. The familiar tune triggered a memory, a reminder of his children, their innocent faces, and their love. With a newfound resolve, he turned away from the tracks, his heart heavy but his spirit unbroken. Apu and Kalyani were talking, their faces filled with worry. Apu voiced his concern, blaming Kalyani for letting Shankaran go to work despite his injured hand. Shankaran returned home, his face etched with defeat. With a heavy heart, he broke the news to his family: he was jobless. A wave of despair swept through the household. Kittu tried to uplift Shankaran's spirits, offering words of encouragement and support. Pankajam's melodious voice filled the environment as she sang a beautiful song. Just as she finished, Raghavan, her brother, walked in. He had moved to Madras for a job in an office there. Balan, with his innocent eyes, approached Shankaran and asked for a banana. Shankaran, though his heart ached, smiled gently at his son. "Tomorrow, my little one," he promised, hoping to soothe the child's disappointment. Kittu, with a heavy heart, shared the news of Shankaran's misfortune with Raghavan. He detailed the recent job loss and the family's subsequent struggles. Onam festivities were in full swing, and everyone was celebrating in their own unique way. Gopi, carefree and joyous, was fully immersed in the festivities, enjoying every moment. Shankaran, weakened by illness, lay bedridden, his coughs racking his frail body. A deep sense of sadness enveloped him as he reflected on his inability to provide for his family. Turning to Apu, he entrusted him with a heavy responsibility, urging him to care for his mother and siblings after his demise. Raghavan, concerned about Shankaran's deteriorating health, brought a doctor to examine him. The doctor, after a thorough examination, delivered the devastating news: Shankaran was suffering from advanced tuberculosis, and his lungs were severely damaged. The doctor's prognosis was grim, stating that his survival was highly unlikely. The doctor left, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded. Shankaran had passed away, his lifeless body lying cold on the bed. Shankaran's bed remained empty, a stark reminder of his absence. His family, their hearts heavy with grief, stayed nearby, devastated by their loss. At school, Gopi's disruptive behavior continued to irritate the teacher, leading to frequent punishments. Apu, meanwhile, felt a growing sense of humiliation as he sat without books, a constant reminder of his family's financial struggles and unpaid fees. Kalyani and Apu tossed and turned, their sleep disturbed by worry. Apu, his heart heavy, confessed to Kalyani that he couldn't continue going to school due to the unpaid fees. However, Kalyani, determined to provide a better future for her children, insisted that he must attend school. Her own health, weakened by a persistent cough, seemed to take a backseat as she focused on her children's well-being. The next day, Apu, with a heavy heart, approached friends and family, seeking financial assistance to pay the school fees. Kalyani, too, turned to her employer, pleading for help, but her request was met with indifference. Disappointment weighed heavily on her as she realized that their situation remained dire. Apu, dejected, walked out of the school gates, his heart heavy with disappointment. It seemed that his hopes of continuing his education had been dashed. Disappointment hung heavy in the air as Apu returned home. Pankajam, unaware of the situation, expressed her frustration at him for not informing them about the fees. Apu, his voice laced with a newfound determination, explained his logic. Even if they managed the payment this time, the struggle would repeat itself next month. He proposed a solution, his eyes shining with resolve, to find work and contribute financially. Pankajam, moved by Apu's determination, offered to inquire with Raghavan about potential job opportunities in Madras. Apu, eager to support his family, readily agreed to move to the city, embracing the chance to start a new life. Pankajam approaches Raghavan, inquiring about the possibility of Apu joining him in Madras. Raghavan, initially resistant, listened as Pankajam poured out her heart. She described the family's descent into hardship after Shankaran's passing, Kalyani's illness, and Apu's unfulfilled dream of education due to unpaid fees. Her words painted a picture of desperation, a bright young boy teetering on the edge of a chance-less future. This makes Raghavan change his mind. The day of departure arrived. Kalyani, her eyes brimming with tears, watched as Apu prepared to leave with Raghavan. A bittersweet farewell filled the air as Apu bid goodbye to his family and friends, his heart heavy with both excitement and sorrow. With a final glance at his loved ones, he stepped into the unknown, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that awaited him in Madras. Apu and Raghavan arrived in the bustling city of Madras. As they walked through the crowded streets, the sights and sounds of the city overwhelmed Apu. They eventually found their way to a small restaurant. As they sat down, Raghavan revealed a surprising truth. He wasn't working in an office, as Pankajam had believed. Instead, he was a hard-working employee at this very restaurant. A friend of Raghavan's, sensing Apu's determination, informed him about a job opening for an errand boy. With renewed hope, Apu goes to meet the potential employer. Apu, despite his initial nervousness, impressed the employer. However, the employer's wife, less forgiving, was not immediately taken by Apu. It was their young child, with an innocent heart, who seemed to connect with Apu, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the initial skepticism. One day, Apu faced a stern reprimand from his boss's wife for using an expensive pen without permission. The scolding, sharp and harsh, left him feeling humiliated and disheartened. The rent collector arrived, his demeanor stern. He attempted to sit on Raghavan's bed, but the children protested. Ignoring their pleas, he tried to force himself onto the bed, escalating the tension. Little Balin, fueled by anger and threatened the intruder with a sling. Just then, Kalyani returned home. The rent collector turned his attention to her, demanding the overdue rent. As he turned to leave, Balin, in a fit of rage, hurled the sling at him. The collector, enraged, issued a threat. He would evict them from their home. Apu's boss was preparing for an upcoming tour. Meanwhile, Apu and the boss's child were engrossed in playful banter, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Kalyani, despite her deteriorating health, continued to work. Her weakened body struggled to keep up with the demands of her job, and she was frequently scolded for her slow pace. One day, on the verge of collapsing, her boss noticed her distress and ordered her to go home and rest and return only when she is healthy. Apu's heart pounded as his boss's wife accused him of stealing the expensive pen. She rummaged through his belongings, her words sharp and accusatory. Just as the situation escalated, a visitor arrived, providing a brief respite. Seizing the opportunity, another servant approached Apu, urging him to flee before the woman could call the police. Apu, though innocent, was terrified of the potential consequences. Despite his protests of innocence, he knew he had to escape. With a heavy heart and a sense of injustice, Apu fled the house, leaving behind his hopes and dreams. When the boss returned home, his wife recounted the incident, accusing Apu of theft. However, the man pulled the pen from his own pocket. He revealed that he had misplaced the pen earlier that day and had found it in his pocket. The realization of her mistake washed over the woman, leaving her filled with guilt and remorse. Apu, lost and alone, wandered the streets of Madras, searching for Raghavan's workplace. However, his search proved futile, as Raghavan had already left the job. Desperate and hungry, Apu found himself adrift, with no shelter and no food. In the midst of his despair, he encountered Papan, a street-smart boy who offered him hope and companionship. Papan, with a kind heart, took Apu under his wing. He bought him some food. Apu poured out his heart, recounting his family's struggles, his sudden departure from home, and his uncertain future. Papan listened patiently, offering words of comfort and understanding. Kalyani, her frail body weakened by illness, received a letter that sent shockwaves through her. She initially believed it was from Apu, a message of hope. However, the letter contained devastating news, an eviction notice from the court. Her heart sank as she realized the gravity of their situation. Kalyani's health deteriorated rapidly, her frail body ravaged by illness. As she lay in bed, tears streamed down her face. A deep longing for Apu consumed her. She yearned to see him, to hold him one last time. Her voice, weak and trembling, whispered his name, a silent plea for his return. Raghavan, once filled with ambition, now eked out a living as a street vendor. Apu and Papan toiled as head loaders, enduring the physical and emotional toll of their arduous work. Kalyani's health deteriorated rapidly, necessitating expensive medical care that was far beyond their financial reach. Apu worked tirelessly, saving every penny he earned, driven by the hope of returning home. One day, fate intervened, and Apu and Raghavan crossed paths on the bustling streets of Madras. They shared their tales of hardship and loss. Meanwhile, back home, Kittu, burdened by the weight of Kalyani's medical expenses, struggled to find the necessary funds. Leela, desperate to help, turned to her mother's former employer. However, her plea was met with indifference and rejection. Fortunately, the employer's husband, moved by Leela's plight, offered a small amount of money. In Madras, Raghavan received letters from home, filled with updates on Kalyani's worsening health. The news shattered his heart, and he yearned to return home to be by her side. With a heavy heart, Apu embarked on his journey home. Meanwhile, Kalyani, weakened by illness, lay in bed, her cries echoing through the house. The arrival of the house owner's clerk, accompanied by a policeman, brought further despair. The clerk, indifferent to Kalyani's fragile state, issued an eviction notice, demanding immediate vacating of the house. Kittu, witnessing the cruelty, pleaded with the clerk to consider Kalyani's health, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. Even the police officer, touched by Kalyani's suffering, urged the clerk to show some compassion. However, the clerk remained unmoved, his heart hardened against their pleas. Enraged by the clerk's heartless behavior, Kittu lashed out, his anger boiling over. Kalyani, despite her pain, tried to calm him, urging him to remain composed. With heavy hearts, she instructed the children to gather their belongings, preparing to leave their home, a place filled with memories and love. As they were about to leave the house, Kalyani's weakened body gave way, and she collapsed to the floor. This shocked the clerk. For the first time, a flicker of remorse crossed his face. He quietly locked the door and left, the weight of his heartless decision heavy on his conscience. Meanwhile, Apu, driven by an urgent desire to reach his family, walked tirelessly, his feet aching and his heart heavy. He reached the home only to find it locked. Desperate, he ran to a neighbor's house, his heart pounding with fear and uncertainty. Apu finally found Leela and Pankajam, their faces etched with sorrow. Pankajam, her voice heavy with grief, broke the devastating news: Kalyani had passed away. Overwhelmed by sorrow, Apu rushed to the cremation ground, hoping to pay his last respects. However, he arrived too late, the funeral rites had already been completed. With a heavy heart, Apu embraced his siblings, their shared grief a silent bond. As they returned home, the weight of their loss hung heavy in the air. A new day dawned, and with it, a new reality. Apu, now the head of the family, began selling newspapers, a meager source of income. Balan and Leela, though young, also took on small jobs, their determination to survive fueling their efforts. As the sun rose, casting its warm glow on the city, the film concluded, leaving the audience with a poignant message. This was not the end, but a new beginning, a testament to the enduring spirit of hope and resilience.